Hello friends, welcome back to the reading vlog. This is part 2 of my reading vlog on Patrick Ness's The Ask and the Answer, which is book 2 in the Chaos Walking trilogy. Now, if you haven't read this, or if you haven't read the first book, The Knife of Never Letting Go, I would probably turn off now because there's going to be spoilers. If you want to know how I feel about the book as a whole, kind of a spoiler-free review, you'll be able to see that in my wrap-up, which I'm going to do later on in the month, and I will link below. Because in this video series, I'm talking about the books that I'm reading in 100-page segments. So this is from page 102, and actually it's a little bit more than 100 pages this time. It's to page 225. So only 20 pages more, but it was just how the chapters fell and how much I'd read in one slot. And this 100-page chunk review discussion format is quite interesting because actually, it's a really good lesson in storytelling, because in 100 pages, you want there to have been enough plot, and enough kind of ideas to challenge you and keep you guessing and get you to think. And Patrick Ness is flipping throwing the plot into these books. Every 100 pages, I have to sit down before I do these videos and think, what on earth has happened in the last 100 pages? So I just sat down just now and had a little glance through the chapters, and actually, goodness gracious me, I don't say goodness gracious me, I don't know where that came from. Perhaps I'm trying not to swear too much, I don't know. Anyway, in this 100-page segment, so much has happened. So first of all, I want to talk about the fact that we've got two perspectives now in this book. We have Todd's perspective and we have Viola's perspective, and I wanted to talk about how I'm feeling about Viola's perspective, because in the first book you learnt about Viola through what she said and how she said it in Todd's point of view, and I did like that actually. I quite like getting to know a character through somebody else, but at the same time he is quite clearly falling for her, or has fallen for her. So his view is a bit rose-tinted, I guess. But this book, the stuff that he is seeing, that she's doing, or he's learning about her, perhaps is sort of, I don't know, not changing his opinion, but making his opinions and thoughts about her a little bit more complex. So Viola's point of view in this book, in these 100 pages, she starts learning to become a healer. She becomes an apprentice to Mistress Coyle, and she starts learning how to heal. And she keeps saying she's not very good at it. She's not naturally a healer. But I think actually she probably kind of is naturally a healer, and she's just not very adept with their methods and what technology they have at their fingertips. So she's learning, and this is a really interesting point, because I do like the fact that actually in the first book Todd couldn't be violent. He was trying not to be violent because that's what Mayor Prentice wanted him to be. He wanted him to be a soldier, and Todd doesn't want to be a soldier. Todd is using his mind, and he's running away from the fight in an admirable way. And so pairing up then with Viola's kind of healer, and she wants to help people and make people feel better, it's a lovely pairing of the two, and I like that. But living in New Prentice Town, which was Haven, is proving to be a bit of a challenge with their ideals. So Viola's point of view, that it's very interesting. She strikes up a very interesting relationship with Mistress Coyle, who is the sort of head healer, and her words, when you read them, are fascinating, and I'm not going to read any to you now, but the conversations they have so far have been some of my favourite conversations in this book. I love a kind of wise teacher talking to a student, and I love that they're challenging each other, and even though I still, because the plot moves on quite a lot with Mistress Coyle in this chunk, still don't know where my allegiance is, or whether my allegiance is with either of the two sort of figureheads for this town, the adults. Then you're either in the camp of President Prentice or you're in the camp of Coyle. I think I'm purely Team Todd and Team Viola at this point, rather than the two grown-ups. So that's really good. So if I'm feeling like that, I hope that that's what Patrick Ness wanted, because these adults, they talk down to the children a little bit, to be honest. They do. Mistress Coyle says things like, you know, you clearly haven't been in through a war, you know? Talk to me once you've been through a war, and then your opinion will matter. And that's, I understand from a war point of view, yes, but it's the general feeling of these adults treating these children like children, even though they've been through so much, that, you know what, there's all this talk about when Todd becomes a man, he's trying to think of himself as a man, and he's very mature and she's very mature, and they've been through so much that they are definitely adults. But I'm quite enjoying the parents sort of smacking the children away, because you're children, you don't know, because I'm an adult, I know better. I don't agree. So I like that. I do like it. I like that it's challenging that. So there's a lot of interesting plot about the spackle in this chunk as well, which I'm not going to go into too much because I want that to be a surprise for you. But really enjoying that. And Todd's relationship with the spackle just gets more and more complex the further these books go on, and there's ideas of slavery being introduced. There are ideas of just subservience, and the spackle are certainly being portrayed as the victims through all of this, despite the fact that the humans think they're always the victims. So that's always very interesting. But now the spackle are in a position where they have been beaten, and so Todd is there, and Todd is actually taking a very, very grown-up stance on his dealings with the spackle, because what Mistress Coyle is saying to Viola is actually that I couldn't save the spackle from being killed during the war, couldn't free the spackle after the war. It was too much of a big grey area. But what I could do is I could make their living conditions better, and I could look out for them, and I could help them. And that is what Todd is trying to do now, and he's come to that decision by himself, the other side of the town. So I love that there are certain parallels. So I feel like Todd might be a bit team Mistress Coyle, but they haven't met yet. I don't know whether they're even going to, but it would be an interesting pairing. So I like the spackle stuff, and actually there's a bit of a hideous instant where there's some fights, there's some large amounts of violence actually. It says on the back of the book, so this isn't really a spoiler, but and then one day the bombs begin to explode, and this chunk of the book takes us from war to terrorism. And you know, who says that young adult books aren't for adults, they're for children? This is ridiculous. We're now into terrorist territory. Ooh, all the T's. But we are, and I'm intrigued by this because we're seeing it from the perspective of obviously Todd and Viola, but we're hearing the opinions of these adults who think of them as children, and yet they are surviving terrorist attacks, and they still don't know which side to be on. And even Viola is talking to Corinne, who is a healer as well, but she's an apprentice healer, and they've got a very interesting relationship. I like her. Oh, she's such a... Actually, Corinne might be one of my favourite characters so far, because she is there trying to heal, and she's only young, but she is saying that, you know, this one marched across the world and brought war to our town, and there are now bombs going off, and it's not about being on whose side of what is happening. My job is to heal people and to fix the broken people. So I think that she is such an admirable character, and I hope she has more to do, and she's certainly stepping up a little bit. And I love that she said she's firmly not taking sides, but she is helping Viola, and so she's... I really, really like her. We're not going to talk about the other the other apprentice, Maddie. We're just not going to talk about her, okay? Because I'm not happy. Let's just very, very briefly talk about Davy Prentice, because he is the person in the first book who really, really antagonizes Todd, and they clearly have a very long history of not niceness. They do not like each other. They've grown up together. He's only a tiny bit older than Todd, but he's already a man, and if you've read the books, you know what it means to become a man in terms of Prentice Town men. So it's just interesting because Todd is firmly against that, and these two are thrown together, and Davy is continuing to antagonize him and bully him and force him to do horrendous things. What Patrick Ness is doing is introducing this idea that Davy is actually, he's being bullied by his dad, and that's such a, well, I guess it's quite a common plot point and story in lots of things, but here it's working very well because you get these moments of Davy being knocked back by his father, and this is not just a little slap or a dismission, that's not a word, being dismissive of an idea, but this is full on attacking, and I think that's obviously painting President Prentice in an even more evil light. So yeah, there's been several cliffhangers at the end of chapters, and because there's multiple perspectives now, it takes a little while to get back to what happened. And there's a wonderful scene again where President Prentice and Viola are having a conversation, and Viola's hands are shaking and she's trying to hold a cup of coffee and she doesn't know whether to drink it or not because it's off the president, and that's a really interesting scene. And then there's a lovely, not so lovely, but a really interesting plot point later on where Todd's cell that he's being kept in accidentally gets left unlocked, which leads to a really interesting new plot twist. So yeah, that's where I am. I'm about to start, this is what part 4 of the novel, which is called Night Falling. So this is really exciting. I hope these videos are proving to be entertaining for you guys and you're enjoying them. Or if there's any way you'd like me to develop this idea, I'm still kind of working through it. But this book is interesting. It's certainly darker than the first one. And I'm fascinated with this whole terrorism angle, living with your enemy, where your enemies become not just your enemies. And this is clever writing. This is a clever story. So that's where I am. I will see you on the next video in another 100 pages or so. You know me. Bye.